Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, as you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, we are talking about Invoked Darklords. At this point, this is my third iteration of Darklords, none of which are just pure Darklords, and the reason for that is because Darklords require a little bit of assistance. So I'm giving it that little bit of assistance with throwing in some extra archetypes. Eldritch and Shadal have performed wonderfully. Let's see how Invoked does. So let's do the quick card by card. So we're running triple Maxi, double Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and a Harpy's Feather Duster for tech cards. The reason I'm only running the two Ash Blossom is because most of the other cards I want to keep in the deck, and I wanted it to be a nice even 40. Seeing more of your cards is very valuable in this deck, so running more than that seems unnecessary. Two Ash Blossom is fine. Moving on, we are going to talk about the Invoker engine. So obviously, we have the triple Alistair the Invoker, the double Invocation, the double Magical Meltdown, and one Terraforming. Alistair works here really well here because most of the time you don't actually need your normal summon for the Darklord combo. It is very important if you're able to get a Morningstar and, a monster on your opponent's side of the field to special summon with the Morningstar effect. But most of the time, that's not going to be the case. Unless you specifically draw something like Indulged, it's not really going to happen all that often. And it does kind of basically require a 3-card combo for it to work. Technically, it's a 4-card combo. So it's not the most reliable. With that in mind, I decided to give my normal summon up to Alistair the Invoker. Because why not? This card's crazy. As for the extra deck slots allocated to Alistair the Invoker, we have the one Artemis. The reason for this is because instead of going into something like Almirage and then into Secure Gardena, I decided instead I'd cut down on the amount of extra deck spaces required and instead focus more on the some of the extra fusions that I could go into. So we have the one Artemis in there. We have the one Kaliga. We have the one Raijin. We have the one Purgatrio. And the one Mage Lanica. So, Kaliga, we have a lot of darks, makes sense for us to have this in case we wanted to get something into the grave. Very nice to have. Raijin, there's a lot of actual top-tier meta decks that play wins. Notably, Virtual World as well as Tri-Brigade Lyrilisk. Both of them require or play a lot of wins, and being able to summon Raijin, very, very nice. Especially if you're like Barrier Statue locked or something along those lines. Because it allows you to just flip a monster face down, and then you can continue to play the game. We have Purgatrio. This can be used off of an Ash Blossom, as well as, if they're playing something like Sallow and Grape, you could definitely use that as well. And then Mage Lanica for Max C. And just to give me a really big beat stick. Then we have Algides, and the two Makaba, and one Elysium. The Elysium rarely comes up, as well as most of these other guys. Basically, the only ones you're going for is Makaba, because it's a negate, right? It's incredibly good. You just discard a card in order to negate an effect and banish the card. Really solid answer to most decks. So, yeah. And then we have Algides, which, when you special summon it, you can pop a card. Also, or pop a monster, I should say. Also, if an opponent's monster is special summoned, you pop that as well, once per turn. So it's very nice. Also, it can get very big. You just banish a fusion monster from the graveyard, and then it gains that attack. So it can get really big. You do have to use a fusion monster in order to summon it. So sometimes you don't have a monster for the second effect, but honestly, just having that pop is very, very nice. And then we have, of course, the Darklord stuff. So let's talk about that. I am running Capricious in this deck. It can come up occasionally if, say, you draw into it and you're able to send it off of a Condemned and then bring it back off of a Contact, or just whatever. If you're able to draw into it, it's very nice because it gives you a normal summon as well as allows you to get that extra tribute summon out, which is very nice. Not absolutely necessary. You could just put in the third Indulged. It still doesn't work too terribly well, but it is nice. Instead, I'm running double Indulged instead of the 3 that I would normally because of the one Capricious. Then we have the one Amdusk, just for corner cases. You're able to search it out for another Morningstar activation. Mostly, that's what it's used for. We have the double Nastin and the double Tez. Nastin is really good if you have Darklord heavy hands. If not, it's kind of a brick. But mostly you're using it to special summon it out with something like Morningstar, or just off of a contact by, you know, pitching it with Yugioh. And then obviously the 2 Tez. It's so nice to have 2. Running 1 sometimes isn't enough, so having 2 is very nice. Obviously the triple Yugioh, the 1 Morningstar, triple Banishment, triple Contact, and then 1 each of all of the traps. Lastly, I wanted to mention that I am playing Allure of Darkness. You could either play Allure of Darkness, or you could play Upstart Goblin, something like that, just to reduce the amount of cards that you need, or make it so that you can see more cards, basically. Upstart Goblin basically makes your deck a 37 card deck, which is really nice, but Allure of Darkness allows you to see more cards, potentially. So, you know, if you have something like 2 Indulged in hand, and you're able to banish one of them, it's pretty nice, because you don't need to. And then we have, of course, the rest of the extra deck. We have the first Darklord, just the 1. You probably could bump this up to 2. I don't actually think it's necessary. Most of the time, if they out the first one, you're probably not making a second anyway. You're kind of dead most of the time. So, it's not really that necessary. Also, you can just bring it back off of contact. If you summon it, you can just bring it back, unless it's negated with, like, a Solemn Judgment. So, 2 Condemned, the 1 Blackluster Soldier of Chaos? Yes, Soldier of Chaos. And then Access Code Talker and Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. And that's the deck. Let's hop into the replays and see how this does. Now, before we get into these duels, I just wanted to say that, did you know, almost 80%, over 80% of the people who watch my channel are not subscribed? That's all. Alright, so here we are in our first duel, and actually I'm going second here, which does kind of suck, especially given the board that is about to befront me. Yeah, it's a set 5 normal summon a Marionetter pass. It's not looking good for me. Especially since I didn't draw Harpy's Feather Duster, I'm a little bit scared. However, I did draw Yugioh as well as an Allure of Darkness. So we're going to Yugioh for 2. We're then going to activate Allure of Darkness. None of these get negated or anything like that. And then we draw into the Magical Meltdown. We're going to Magical Meltdown. It's still going through. And at this point, I'm going to activate Contact. Contact back that Yugioh. And now we activate Yugioh's effect. Yugioh, go for the contact, and here we get protocols. We knew that they had this, so they were always going to be able to negate our effect by tributing their Marionetter. They're going to destroy our Yugioh and negate its effect. I'm going to go for Invoker here. We're going to add the Invocation. Then we are going to link off into an Artemis. Artemis is light. Doesn't really matter all that much, though. I'm going to Invocation, and we are going to banish the Marionetter. Then we are going to go for Makaba. And at this point, I'm just going to activate the Invocation, bring back the Alistair. Obviously, do this every time. Do not forget it. But yeah, at this point, we just go to battle. They're going to activate Lost Wind, and I'm kind of dumb here. I held this trap just in case I needed to negate a trap, and I ended up messing up. Because I don't use it to negate a trap here, which is really, really dumb. So, Lost Wind says, target a special summoned monster on the field, negate its effects, also have its attack, and it's not until the end of the turn. It is forever. They cannot use that effect, and the attack is halved forever. And I thought that it was only to the end of the turn, so I was like, oh yeah, that's fine. I'll just deal a little bit less damage, not a big deal. No, I'm dumb. Now I have to normal summon my Alistair again, and I mean, it doesn't really matter. Normal summon Alistair is fine, but yeah, that was really silly of me. They're just going to end their turn on that. They didn't really have anything, which is understandable. They didn't end up drawing Multi-Faker, so, you know. Here they Torrential Tribute, which is a terrible decision. They probably should have Torrential Tributed when I actually Fusion summoned my other monster. At that point, they could have wiped the field. But, I mean, if it was a Makaba and I had a trap in hand, I could have negated it, which probably was a problem, and I think that's what they were reading. So, they end up nuking the board, but it doesn't matter. I still get my Invocation, and at this point, I have 2 Invocations and 2 Alistairs, as well as 1 in the grave, so at this point, I'm basically done. They activate Solemn Judgment here, which is an interesting thing to do, seeing as how Magical Meltdown basically says, the activation of your cards and effects that include an effect that fusion summons a fusion monster cannot be negated. Also, your opponent's cards and effects cannot activate when a monster is fusion summoned this way. So, yeah, they just paid half of their life points to do nothing. Invocation still goes off, and since I had the other invocation, it still wouldn't have mattered. That negation doesn't do anything. I go into Makaba here, and it is basically over. I'm going to activate my invocation, and they just surrender. At that point, I could just boost up with the Alistair the Invoker in order to punch in for lethal. So, yeah, not a whole lot they could have done there. Alright guys, so here we are going first again, and this hand is trash. But this duel, you will actually be able to see the power of Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. This card comes in very clutch here. So I actually just passed the turn on my first turn, and then Ash Blossom, whatever this is, I was like, I don't want to have to deal with this. I don't know what this deck does, the Magistrus. But it turns out it's Shadal's. So they just slap down a Shadal fusion, or an El Shadal fusion, and go into El Shadal Construct. And I'm like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. So they're going to go for Squamata, and then into Beast, and draw a card, and then they're going to set 3 and pass. I'm like, okay, this really sucks. I need to draw something good here. Something good off the top. I drew Alistair, and we already had the invocation. So this is really, really solid. They're going to imperm me, and guess what? I am a good invoker player. I already drew the invocation. Now, we know that they have a light in grave. They actually have 2 as well. So I can just go into... I mean, I still go into the Artemis, but at this point, I'm going to go invocation, and I'm going to banish the 2, and then just summon out the Makaba. And... of course, activate the invocation, bring back the Alistair, but at this point, I'm like, I'm not even going to attack into this. I can negate it, but I'm going to let it negate itself and be banished. So it attacks into my Makaba. It activates its effect to destroy the special summoned monster, and then I just banish it away. So there you go. We still have the Invoker as well for follow-up, and I drew Terraforming, which makes this even better. So we're going to grab up our Magical Melt. Oh, excuse me. We're going to grab up our Magical Meltdown. Magical Meltdown, activate, search out the second Invoker. They're going to Schism here, which is actually very scary. Because if they summon out Construct, they can send our Makaba to the grave, and I can't negate it. Because it is actually the effect of Schism. So they're going to send the Wendy here. Wendy effect is going to special summon out the Beast. And yeah, at this point, I have 2 disruptions potentially to play through. And there is Imperm. This really, really sucks. But, notably, last turn, I sent a Nastin to the grave, and I ended up drawing in, or I already had the Contact in hand. So I'm going to contact that back, and then I'm going to link off into Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. This card is insane. Notably, it does 2 things. 1, if a level 7 or higher monster is used as material, when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can activate one of these effects. This card gains 1500 attack. It can make a second attack during the next battle phase, during your next battle phase, or you can banish a card in the field. The reason this is so valuable is because we can banish this Schism. Schism doesn't target when it sends a monster away, and if they were to go into something like Sheki Naga, I would basically be screwed, because they could just they could just use the Schism to go into Sheki Naga, and then send this guy away, non-targeting, which is really problematic. Also, this guy can't be destroyed by card effects, nor can it be targeted, which is really problematic. So, we're just going to attack into the Beast in order to get our effect. They're going to send the Falco off of their effect, which gets them another body on the field. And yeah, this is looking really scary for me. I basically just have to deal with this one thing. However, I actually decided to go for the core here because I realized they didn't have any Earths in grave or on the field. So I was like, they can't actually use Schism to go for the Sheki Naga. So I'm going to banish this set card, hoping that it's something that isn't going to give them that ability to go for an Earth, or just something that is going to be able to deal with my monster. And it turns out that was the right choice. Banishing this does prevent them from getting that Earth attribute that they so desperately needed. Also, this guy's Earth, which is why that matters. So they go into another construct here, which is a big mistake. They definitely should have gone for an Earth if they could have. That definitely would have been better. I don't know if they're playing an Earth that they could have used, but if they're not, that's very foolish. I did check the deck, but I didn't see anything. Anyway, they're going to go for Wendy here. They're going to go for the Aerial, and then Jar of Avarice. Jar of Avarice in this deck is actually very sick. I really like it. Because you are sending a whole bunch of monsters to the grave, it is nice to just shuffle them back, draw 2. And they're playing their own invocation. And since I had an Alistair the Invoker in grave, they go for their own Makaba. At this point, I basically just need to not activate my Blackluster Soldier's effect. That's all that I need to do. Just don't activate the effect. I'm going to normal summon the Alistair, and they immediately surrender seeing that. And I'm like, okay, that's really weird. They knew that I had the second, and they could have just negated the effect of the Alistair the Invoker with their Makaba. They choose not to do that. I guess it was most likely because with the Alistair the Invoker, that is basically forcing a negate as well as the Blackluster Soldier. If they don't actually negate the Blackluster Soldier to deal with it, it does in fact deal with that entire board that they have set up. So I guess that's why they surrendered. It was very funny though, because it was like they had so many cards on their field and I just had Alistair, and then they surrendered. Alright, so here we are in our next duel, and as you can see, this is more so a Darklord heavy hand, and I'm going second, which really sucks. However, it's against Blue Eyes, so it's not going to end up mattering that I do end up going second. So we're going to fast forward their play a little bit because it's basically just set to pass. The most that I have to deal with is 2 3,000 attack point beat sticks. But we're doing it with Darklords, and let's see how this goes. So first of all, I am going to go for Nastin here. We are going to then special summon back the Indulged with the Contact. Indulged is going to give them an Uko back, how scary, and I'm going to grab up my own Tez. We're then going to go into the Condemned Darklord. Activate the effect, and at this point I'm kind of scared that they could have something like a negate because they have so many cards that are just completely unknown. They have 2 cards in hand, one of them could be something like an Ash Blossom, and they have 2 cards on the field, and I don't know what they could be playing. So, doesn't end up mattering. We're going to search out the Morningstar. We're going to summon out the Morningstar by banishing the only 2 monsters that we had, and then Morningstar's effect is going to activate. We're going to special summon it out 2. Then we are going to activate Morningstar's effect and mill a whole bunch of cards. We're going to then search out another card. We're going to search out the Eggshell because it's good for follow-up. Really, that's basically it. Then I am going to fuse. We're going to fuse with 3 and go into the first Darklord. We're then going to wipe the field, not before they actually activate some of their other effects. They're going to flip up Threatening Roar, which does save them for a turn, as well as True Light. This card doesn't do anything. They think it does, but it doesn't. So they end up setting a card that just ends up getting destroyed anyway. I don't know if they actually knew what I was doing with the first Darklord, but they decided to just start flipping things, and yeah. So here we actually, interestingly enough, we haven't activated Eggshell this turn, neither have we activated our Banishment. So we're going to do both of those. We're going to activate Eggshell and then add, draw into the Banishment, and here we're going to add the Rebellion for better follow-up. So we have the Rebellion set, we also have first Darklord, and during the main phase, as soon as they activate something, I am just going to, I'm going to let them bring back their Blue Eyes White Dragon, and at this point, I'm going to activate the first Darklord, bring back the Eggshell. They're going to go to battle, and I have Enchantment in the grave, so I'm just going to steal their monster so that I don't have to lose one of mine, or have to activate Tez. During the end phase, I'm going to contact back the Amdusk, and then Amdusk is going to search a card. I forget what I actually search here. Oh, I search out the Nastin, just to have another monster. And then I activate Rebellion to pop their last card, which, Majesty of the... What is this? Send a Blue Eyes monster... Targeted... Oh. This doesn't do anything. I searched the Magical Meltdown, but at this point, like, it's already lethal. I could literally just switch everything to attack and just win from there, but I'm going to go for the Invocation because I can. I'm going to Invocate. We're going to banish the Egg to go for Makaba. Going to put it in the extra monster zone because it's funny. And... oh, Eggshell. Oh, I popped the card, and then at this point, it's well over lethal. I don't even switch the Amdusk to attack, just in case. And yeah. Well over lethal. Really well done there. Blue Eyes, get clapped. Alright, and here we are once again in our last duel, and we get to go first. As you can see, I've drawn a really phenomenal hand. So we're going to we're going to Magical Meltdown. The reason I do this first is as Ash Blossom bait. See, we already have the Alistair the Invoker, we have Eggshell, as well as Allure of Darkness. All of these can be activated to bait out an Ash Blossom, but Magical Meltdown still stays on the field. when it's activated, and since we already had the Alistair, we didn't need this to actually complete. So I'm going to activate that, and then I'm going to go for the Yugioh. I'm going to actually banish the Alistair off of our Allure of Darkness, because I'd rather keep the Capricious as well as the Tez. They could come up later. So here I'm going to search out the Nastin. I'm going to then go for Nastin's effect. We're going to pitch the 2. We're going to slap this guy down. We're going to activate the effect in order to search out a contact. Then, Then we are going to go for the Yugioh. Yugioh effect is then going to bring back the Capricious. And then we are going to normal summon the Alistair. Alistair is going to search out the invocation, and you're probably wondering, hey, why didn't you go into Condemned and go for the Morningstar? You could have done that while using the Capricious effect to banish monsters from the grave in order to actually get your Morningstar on the field. For free, basically, and still have Alistair. Well, the reason I didn't go for that is because I have 2 disruptions already in the grave, notably Rebellion and Enchantment. And I have 2 monsters that I would have to use to go into Condemned in order to go for Morningstar, in order to have no disruption in the grave. So instead, I just use my normal summon here and just go for Invoker. It's simpler and easier. And it allows me to have more disruptions. That's ultimately the reason why we do the Morningstar play, is because it allows us to potentially get more by milling more cards into the grave. Here we're just going to add back the Invoker, and now we have Tez and Invoker in hand. So 3 disruptions against this whatever 6 cards it may be. Turns out it's Virtual Worlds. Virtual Worlds are incredibly terrifying. They set their Chuche, and I'm going to immediately pop that. The reason for this is because if they have a Virtual World card on the field, they can special summon their monsters from the hand by just targeting it. They also get a whole bunch of value by sending cards to the graveyard as well. So I'm just going to immediately pop that and say, no, I want none of that. They're going to Pot of Desires to draw even more cards, which is really troublesome because they draw into a Qinglong. Qinglong is just going to allow them to get a whole bunch of advantage here. So they're going to special out their GG, and I'm just going to immediately take that. They do this weird thing where they just modulate its level. I don't know why they did this, but I don't think they read what my card did. So I just steal it, and now they have a random level 6. They're going to normal summon their Nyan, which then special summons the other Nyan as a tuner from the grave. I'm going to negate the Lily in hand with the Makaba, sending Tez. I realize at this point I don't really need the protection since I already have really big monsters, so it's not really that big of a deal. They're going to go into Breaksword. They're going to Breaksword, pop their Qinglong as well as my Makaba. And then they are going to attack into the Capricious here. Capricious is then going to turn its attack into, well, just cut it in half, basically. Because we have the 2 Darklord monsters on the field, it decreases the attack by 1,000 since it was sent to the grave. They're going to then go off into Zeus. And this is where they make a big mistake. They Zeus here and then end the turn. I understand why they did this, but it doesn't actually do a whole lot. I still have Alistair the Invoker in hand. I didn't end up using it for Makaba, so I can just go Alistair the Invoker here. They activate their Max C, and I'm like, that sucks. They're still going to be able to draw cards, but I'm only ever going to summon once. I didn't draw something like a Contact that would have allowed me to go into more special summons. So we're just going to go for Invocation here, and at this point I was thinking whether or not to go into Makaba or Algides. Algides notably does get rid of the double Azaeus, as well as have disruption on the opponent's turn. Makaba doesn't do both. It does one or the other. This one allows me to have the Alistair still in hand for follow-up plays while still having some sort of disruption. So I'm going to just proceed to battle. I'm going to deal 2,000, and this honestly probably didn't matter. It would have been better to put this guy into defense position because of the fact that it has higher defense. 2,800 is much more difficult to deal with than 2,000, and you'll see that comes up later. They're going to Ash Blossom or Max C, which really sucks, but I mean, you know, if you got it, you got it. They go for Qinglong, they go for the normal summon of Nyan, bring back the Nyan, go into a rank 3, not a level 6, even though they could have. They go into Virtual World Dragon, and I can't pop this when it is special summoned because it cannot be targeted, and this specifically targets. So, can't deal with that. However, its other effect doesn't really end up mattering. So they are going to then special summon their Lily in order to search a card, and they are going to search for, they special their Lulu to search for their Lily, and then their Lily effect is going to activate to special summon itself, and they go for the Vermilion Dragon Mech. At this point, Vermilion Dragon Mech doesn't have a target in the banish pile, so if I pop it, it's not going to actually gain its effect to add a tuner from the banish pile to the hand. So at this point, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to pop this. This is the best thing to negate. Or to destroy. And I could have destroyed basically any of their special summoned monsters up till this point, but I notably wanted to specifically destroy the Vermilion that I knew was coming. They're going to go for Keenlong and just negate our effect, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. And instead of boosting up with Alistair the Invoker, I am just going to let it slide. Just let it go. Get the Alistair on the next turn. We also draw into a contact, which is really nice because it allows us to put pressure on for the following turn. I'm actually going to banish the Zeus here to go into Makaba because it's funny. So we go into Makaba, Alistair the Invoker, pretty simple stuff here. Haven't really seen much of the Darklord half of this engine, but honestly, it's fine. Most of the time it's used as follow-up to defeat the opponent and to go for lethal. I'm going to negate this Lulu. If Lulu gets off, that's massive trouble. They're going to negate our effect, but I'm actually just going to chain to that and contact our Nastin. Here, no, I contacted the Tez because it has higher attack. And with just Keenlong on the field, I can literally just switch everything to attack and attack for game. That's lethal. Virtual worlds are very scary, so the fact that I was able to beat them was exciting. So, how did this perform? Is it good? Is it bad? What's the verdict? Honestly, this is probably the best version, if not tied with Eldritch. It's probably a little bit worse, in all honesty. Eldritch is just so incredibly strong in Master Duel. But Alistair the Invoker is a close second, not gonna lie. They're both control strategies that gain a lot of advantage turn after turn, that allow you to play more, I don't know, like just more. They allow you to do so much more because a single one of their cards basically has to be responded to, and that allows you to go in for more powerful plays with your Darklord engine, ending on things like first Darklord or just Blackluster Soldier, Soldier of Chaos is really powerful against specific decks. And yeah, both of these strategies allow you to do that. The difference being that Alistair does take up your normal summon, which means you can't always go for something like Morningstar and Alistair. You can only go for one or the other, which is a problem, but I think it really doesn't matter all that often. The only time it really comes up is when you actually have something like Indulged and in Ixchel / Nastin to actually get that benefit from Indulged. So, all in all, I think it's really, really solid. And Makaba's stupid. Magical Meltdown should probably be banned. Not gonna lie, this card's crazy, and if it does get banned, Alistair will probably see significantly less play, just because it will be just less common. You won't see it as often. You're not going to see your Magical Meltdown nearly as often. All in all, it's very fun, the deck, though. You still get all of the combo from Darklords, as well as all of the control from Alistair. Very similar to Eldritch. The big thing that I do want to note is you're able to play more hand traps. You're able to play things like Ash Blossom, as well as, you know, Harpy's Feather Duster and such. But more importantly, you're able to play Allure of Darkness, and drawing more cards is very nice. Even if you just banish an Alistair, it's still very nice, because you can have more cards to work with your Darklord engine. You can have that Nastin actually be pretty useful, because you're able to see more of your traps, more of your monsters. It's very nice. And yeah, that's basically it. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy it. If you did, a like is very much so appreciated, and that's going to be it for me. Just remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.